Hello. Hope you're having a good day today. Because I had some time to do another stream. This time here, I want to do some more Dungeons and Dragons lore video. And I found a nice good one here. This one here is on the Legend of Driss. Now I am I've heard of it, but I haven't really delved into this series yet. So I'm interested to see what kind of lore this has. So without further ado, let's go.
While parts of what you'll hear are adapted from earlier explorations on this channel, new segments have been added and many have been expanded, rewritten, and refined. New details and perspectives. My goal was to create something seamless, a single continuous experience that captures the scope of Dritt's story through those who walk beside or against him. So whether you've read every novel or are discovering these tales for the first time, I invite you to settle in. This is the lore of the Legend of Drizzt, a chronicle of the companions, foes, and family who helped shape the hero that changed the Forgotten Realms forever.
No ad, please. Thank you.
Born beneath the obsidian vaults of Menzoberranzan, Drizzt Do'Urden entered the world marked for sacrifice. A third son of House Do'Urden, his birth was to be an offering to Loth, the Spider Queen. Yet fate intervened through fratricide, and the blade meant for him was turned elsewhere. From that night, Dritzt's life became a quiet rebellion against everything his people held sacred. He was trained by his father, Zaknafein, the only drow in that pitiless city who spoke of mercy. Under his guidance, Drizzt learned mastery of the twin-blade fighting style and the weight of conscience. But in a society that worshipped betrayal, compassion was a curse. When Zaknafein was sacrificed to Loth to save his son, Drizzt fled into the endless caverns of the Underdark, abandoning the only home he had ever known for a truth he could not yet name. But he was not alone. By his side walked Gwynevere, a magical panther called to his side from the astral plane through an enchanted figurine. For years he wandered through the lightless world, surviving ambushes, demons, and the voice of his own darker nature, the hunter. It was a feral side born from isolation and necessity, the fragment of himself that knew only the kill. Yet even there, amid monsters and madness, he clung to a fragile ideal, that morality could exist without reward, that kindness could endure without witness. In the tunnels of the deep earth, he found an unlikely companion in Belwar Disengulp, a Svirfneblin miner whose life he had once saved by convincing his brother Deneen to take only the gnome's hands and not his life. Belwar's quiet dignity and wry humor anchored Dritzt's fragile humanity during those years of exile. The deep gnome saw past his heritage to the heart beneath, offering the one thing Drizzt had not known since childhood: acceptance. Together they carved a peace in the darkness, proof that understanding could exist even where the gods had long since turned their gaze away. When Drizzt left the Underdark, and at last he reached the surface, the world above greeted him with fear. But through the patience of Montolio de Brucci, a blind ranger who saw with the heart rather than the eyes, Drizzt found his purpose. From Montolio he learned the teachings of Mialiki, a lady of the forest, and shaped the code that helped guide his path, holding fast to hope. It was in Icewind Dale where he first met his found family, Brunor, Catti-brie, Wulfgar, and Regis, and along with Gwynevere they became known as the Companions of the Hall. Their adventures have taken them across the Sword Coast, and their names have been carved into the hearts and minds of all who they've encountered. Across centuries, Drizzt has walked Faerun's snows and forests, a black silhouette against the storm. His scimitars, Icing Death and Twinkle, have struck down dragons, demons, and tyrants. Yet his true legacy is not only in the foes he has slain, but in the lives he has touched. The companions who followed him saw in him not a drow, but a man worth believing in. Now more than 2 centuries old, Drizzt remains both legend and wanderer. He has trained as a fighter under his father Zaknafein, a ranger under Montolio de Bruchy, and a monk under the tutelage of Grandmaster Cain. After Mialiki brought back his closest allies and dearest love, Catti-brie, the two had a daughter named Brianelle. Time has stolen many he loved, but many gifts too have been bestowed upon him. He stands as proof that light is not the absence of darkness, but the will to rise against it again and again. The boy who refused to kneel before Loth became the ranger who taught the realms that redemption begins with choice.
Okay. Weapon of choice.
At 16, Drizzt Do'Urden's fate hung on a simple test. Zaknafein had convinced Matron Malice that her youngest son possessed remarkable ambidextrous abilities, what he called 2 hands. But would Drizzt become a wizard destined for Sorcerer as his mother wished, or would he follow the path of the blade? The answer came in coins, 10 spinning pieces of metal that Drizzt caught with impossible grace, his hands moving in perfect harmony. 2 hands, Zak declared triumphantly. This one is a fighter. But being ambidextrous was only the beginning. When Zaknafein pulled away the curtain in the training hall, revealing the most magnificent weapons rack Drizzt had ever seen, the young drow faced his first real choice. Every weapon imaginable hung before him: straight swords, axes, polearms, hammers, traditional drow weapons of war. Yet after experimentation, Drizzt's hands eventually found the scimitars. The scimitar wasn't a common choice in Menzoberran Zan. Most drow favored straight blades, direct, brutal, efficient. The curved blade required finesse, demanded a different fighting philosophy entirely. Where a longsword met force with force, the scimitar turned angles into opportunities, rewarding precision over raw strength. This distinction reveals everything about Drizzt's nature. Even at 16, he possessed what Salvatore described as a spirit of innocence. He lacked the maliciousness that drove most drow combat. The scimitar, with its graceful arc and flowing movement, matched something fundamental in his character: a preference for elegance over brutality, for the dance over the slaughter. We also see this in Zaknafein's observations, how the scimitars flowed in Drizzt's hands, interweaving with uncanny precision. Each blade seemed to anticipate the other's moves and whirred about in perfect complement. This went beyond skill. It was harmony between warrior and weapon. Under Zak's tutelage, Drizzt transformed that natural affinity into devastating technique. He progressed from the eager 16-year-old dropping his scimitars in frustration over the cross-down parry to the confident fighter who could innovate in combat, adding kicks and creative counters to traditional moves. But here's what makes Drizzt's scimitar work unique. It wasn't about individual blade mastery. It was about duality and perfect harmony. His scimitars worked independently, yet in perfect harmony, foiling every attack. One blade could engage defensively while the other struck. One could parry high while its partner swept low. This dual-wielding style created something Menzoberran Zan had rarely seen: a fighter who moved like water, whose defense became offense, whose every motion flowed into the next with lethal precision. By the time we see Drizzt facing 5 opponents in the Academy arena of Melee Mag there, his mastery is awe-inspiring. His movements, solely defensive at first, settle into a comfortable rhythm. This rhythm, this dance, became his signature. Not the brutal efficiency of traditional drow combat, but something approaching artistry. The scimitar became more than Drizzt's weapon of choice. It became the physical manifestation of his philosophy that there could be beauty even in battle, that curve could triumph over straight line, that 2 working in harmony could achieve what one could never accomplish alone.
No ads, please. Thank you.
Dritz's first named scimitar came into his life on an adventure that began as Wulfgar's rite of passage, a challenge of the white dragon Ingaloa Castamazelian, known as Icing Death. This fabled dragon slumbered deep beneath the Reged Glacier in a place called the Evermelt. Drizzt shadowed Wulfgar, unwilling to let his friend confront the beast alone. The journey took them deep into the frozen heart of the glacier, where they braved bitter cold and treacherous terrain to reach the dragon's lair, a cavern of solid ice filled with deadly traps. The ensuing battle was fierce and unforgiving. The dragon's icy breath filled the cavern with deadly shards of frost, and its claws threatened to tear Wulfgar apart. Drizzt arrived just as the dragon prepared its killing blow, casting a globe of darkness over its eyes and buying Wulfgar the time he needed to dislodge a massive icicle from the ceiling, crushing the dragon and securing their victory. As they explored the dragon's hoard, Dritzt's gaze fell upon a beautifully crafted scimitar. The silver blade was razor sharp, and the hilt was shaped like the maw of a hunting cat, a detail that struck a deep chord in Drizzt. The hilt's likeness reminded him of Guinevere. Its resemblance to Guinevere felt like fate to Drizzt. He claimed the scimitar, naming it Icing Death in honor of the fallen dragon, and soon discovered its unique powers. Enchanted with ancient magic, Icing Death could absorb flames and shield its wielder from fire, a rare and valuable trait. One battle that showcased Icing Death's power was Dritzt's clash with the demon Air-2, a Balor of the Abyss. Air-2 wielded flames that would have incinerated most enemies, but as Drizzt faced down the demon, Icing Death absorbed the heat of each strike, protecting him from the worst of Air-2's wrath. The icy blade seared into the demon's fiery form, causing intense pain that weakened Air-2 and allowed Drizzt to banish the demon back to the abyss. Dritzt's second scimitar, Twinkle, was a gift. During his journey to save Regis from Artemis Entrere, Drizzt sought the aid of the wizard Malcor Harpel. Recognizing Dritzt's selfless mission to rescue his friend, Malcor presented him the Twinkle, a scimitar forged by the elves of a past age. Crowned with a sapphire in the pommel, Twinkle glowed with a soft blue light whenever danger was near. This enchanted blade gave Drizzt an edge in battle, alerting him to hidden threats and granting him enhanced awareness. Twinkle also possesses a unique, almost empathic connection to Drizzt. During intense moments, such as when Drizzt faces peril or emotional turmoil, the scimitar sometimes glows even when not in his grasp, as though attuned to his feelings. This mystical connection suggests Twinkle is more than a mere weapon. It's a companion that resonates with Dritzt's spirit and responds to his emotional state. Twinkle was destroyed in a fateful strike against two other blades, Tiago Baenri's Vidranath, the drow-crafted starlight blade, and Khazad-hia, the cutter, wielded by Dumiel Armgo. But Drizzt survived that encounter and later defeated Tiago, and though he had no use for Tiago's sword, Catti-brie collected Twinkle's broken pieces and Vidranath, and using the Forge of Gauntlegrim and the godlike primordial Magera's power, merged the two into a reforged blade, combining the power of both into a reborn scimitar, which Drizzt carries to this day. Over time, Icing Death and Twinkle have become symbols that carry Dritzt's reputation far and wide. Across Faerun, stories circulate of a drow wielding twin scimitars with unmatched skill, a figure as enigmatic as he is formidable. To some, the sight or rumor of the drow with the twin blades is a harbinger of hope, a legend of a dark elf who defies the cruelty of his kin and stands for justice in a world fraught with peril. To others, particularly those who harbor mistrust or fear of the drow, the scimitars are a warning of the rare but fearsome warrior who won't hesitate to fight for what he believes is right. In the wake of Dritzt's many adventures, tales of his exploits spread across towns and kingdoms. As bards and travelers recount his battles, Icing Death and Twinkle take on lives of their own within the collective consciousness. These scimitars are described with almost mythical qualities, their powers exaggerated and their connection to Drizzt imbued with a near supernatural mystique.
75%.
Guinevere is a sleek and muscled Black Panther, embodying grace and power in equal measure. But she is no ordinary panther, but one born of a magical ritual in the forest of Cormanthor. She became the immortal companion of Drizzt in his last year at the academy while he studied magic at Sorceer. But Guinevere was created long before this fateful meeting. Guinevere's origins trace back to 253 Del Reckoning. Anders Beltgarden, a ranger turned mage living on the outskirts of Cormanthor, sought to craft a figurine of wondrous power using a dwarven crafted onyx statuette. His intent was to bind the essence of a wild black panther to the figurine, creating an immortal servant. However, Anders' friend, the elven bladesinger Josiah Starum, recognized the creature's intelligence and urged him to abandon the ritual. In the final moments of his invocation, Anders hesitated and set the panther free. The creature immediately rushed to aid Josiah, who was locked in battle against 3 giants in the woods near Cormanthor. The panther succeeded in saving Josiah, but was mortally wounded in the fight. With no other option, Anders and Josiah performed a second ritual to preserve her spirit. This time, the ritual succeeded in immortalizing the panther without enslaving her. Her essence became bound to the onyx figurine as a living, eternal being residing on the astral plane. Josiah named her Guinevere, Shadow, in the High Elven tongue. With the enchantment complete, Guinevere became Josiah's companion. On the astral plane, her vitality became endless, and she gained resistance to many of the material plane's natural dangers. However, her connection to the figurine required balance. When summoned to the material plane, she could only remain for up to 12 hours before her energy waned, forcing her to return to the astral plane to recover. Over 1,000 years after her creation, Guinevere's destiny intertwined with Drizzt and Menzoberranzan. Though the specifics remain unclear, Josiah Starum journeyed into the Underdark, where the figurine was lost. Eventually, the onyx statuette came into the possession of Masoj Hanet, a cruel drow wizard who used Guinevere for sport and slaughter. Drizzt encountered Masoj and Guinevere during his time in Sorceer, the drow school for wizards. While Masoj viewed the panther as a tool, Drizzt recognized her intelligence and dignity. This came to a head when Masoj commanded Guinevere to kill Drizzt. In a pivotal moment, the panther defied her master's order and turned to aid Drizzt instead. Left with no choice, Drizzt killed Masoj, freeing Guinevere from her servitude and forging a bond that would prove unbreakable. This connection deepened during Drizzt's exile from Menzoberranzan. In the desolation of the Underdark, Guinevere became far more than an ally. She was his lifeline. Though she could not speak, her presence offered solace and understanding. She was not just a means of physical survival, but an emotional anchor in the oppressive loneliness of the Underdark. Reflecting on her importance, Drizzt later wrote in his journal, "Guinevere saved me, I believe. The same companion that had pulled me from certain death in the clutches of monsters unnumbered rescued me from a death of emptiness. Less dramatic, perhaps, but no less fatal." During those 10 years alone in the wild Underdark, Drizzt nearly lost himself to the primal instincts of the hunter. In one crucial moment, consumed by rage and savage impulse, he commanded Guinevere to chase and kill Master Buddha. The panther refused. She returned herself to the astral plane in defiance of his order. This act forced Drizzt to recognize how far he had fallen and reminded him of who he truly was. Guinevere's refusal became a turning point, pulling him back from the edge of madness. Guinevere's intelligence and moral compass shine clearly in the Halfling's Gem when Pasha Pook, the guildmaster of Kalimport, gained control of her figurine. He ordered her to attack Regis. Yet despite being bound by the magic of the figurine, Guinevere's loyalty to Drizzt and her innate sense of justice allowed her to defy this command. Instead of harming Regis, she leapt upon him and transported both of them to the astral plane. This moment demonstrates her ability to discern threatening situations quickly and her extraordinary magical power to transport others between planes. It is a rare ability, one that she has used on multiple occasions to alter the course of events. Guinevere is more than a summoned ally. She is a sentient force of protection and loyalty, a creature whose moral clarity surpasses even the magic that binds her. During the time of troubles in 1358 DR, when the weave was disrupted and magic failed across the realms, Guinevere's statuette was also affected. The figurine cracked, and she became trapped between planes, unable to return to her home on the astral plane. Catti-brie used Kazatia to cut the figurine, which brought Guinevere back to the material plane, but she could no longer return. Exhausted and fading, Guinevere remained on the material plane for days, her strength waning. With the aid of dwarven clerics and a magical glue from the Harples, Drizzt repaired the figurine. Only then could Guinevere finally return to the astral plane to rest and recover. In 1463 DR, tragedy struck during the events of Charon's Claw and the Last Threshold. In a fierce battle against Herzgo Alegni, a Netherese warlord, Guinevere leapt to strike the tiefling, but Alegni, using shadow magic, evaded her by stepping into the Shadowfell, inadvertently pulling her into the Dark Realm with him. Once in the Shadowfell, Alegni's ally, the warlock Drago Quick, used powerful magic to trap Guinevere in a magical cage. Isolated from her bond with Drizzt, she was exploited as a tool to spy on her companion. Drizzt, unaware of her plight, assumed her fatigue and the interruptions in her summons were caused by the chaotic fallout of the spell plague. Guinevere's rescue came thanks to Jarlaxle Bay Enri and Cumuriel Oblodra. Enlisting the help of mind flayers, adept in planar manipulation, they infiltrated the Shadowfell and shattered Drago Quick's defenses. Guinevere was freed from her prison and returned to the astral plane, finally able to reunite with Drizzt. Throughout Drizzt's adventures, Guinevere has been more than an ally. She has become a trusted companion to his family and friends. In 1490, Guinevere journeyed alongside Catti-brie on her quest to find Duimhil Armgo, where they instead discovered the Avondrau city of Caladay. At times, Guinevere has traveled alongside Drizzt and Catti-brie's daughter, Breezy. Guinevere fiercely protects her just as she did Drizzt. Her enduring presence a reminder that her story, like Drizzt's, continues to evolve across generations. Guinevere never speaks, yet her actions convey a depth of loyalty and understanding that resonates deeply. She reminds us of the bonds we cherish most, the companions who need no words to express their endless love and devotion.
Make it a habit, 7 minutes of Tai Chi every morning.
The greatest hero of the Forgotten Realms was born into Menzoberranzan's darkness on the same night his family committed murder to rise in power. Drizzt Do'Urden's first breath came as House de Vere's last scream echoed through the city. His mother, Matron Malice, had orchestrated the slaughter and considered her newborn son a disappointment. Today we explore the family that shaped a legend, a house that climbed to the ruling council on ambition and blood, only to be consumed by the same darkness it embraced. To understand why Drizzt became who he is, let's
skip ahead. The companions of the Hall is interesting. Look at.
In the Chronicles of the Forgotten Realms, few names carry the weight of legend quite like the Companions of the Hall. This fellowship stands as one of the most enduring bands of heroes to ever walk Faerun, their deeds echoing across decades and reshaping the fate of nations. They are an unlikely family. Drizzt, the Drow Ranger exiled from his dark homeland with his loyal panther, Guinevere, ever at his side. Brunor Battlehammer, a surly dwarven king who reclaimed not one, but two dwarven homelands, uniting bloodkin and found family alike to his cause. Wulfgar, son of Bjornagar, a barbarian raider who came to Brunor as a prisoner and grew into a proud warrior and king in his own right before suffering a mighty fall. Regis, the halfling thief from the streets of Kalimport, who always seems to be in trouble, always seems to be hungry, but always finds a way to help his friends when they need him most. And Catti Bree, the adopted human daughter of Brunner, once betrothed to Wulfgar, an archer, priest of Mialiki, and spell-scarred wizard of Mistra, now the wife of Drizzt and mother to their daughter Bree. Bound together in the shadows of Icewind Dale and forged through trials that would have shattered lesser souls, they became something greater than any could have achieved alone. Their story spans generations, from the frozen tundra of Ten Towns to the reclaimed Mithril Hall, from the streets of Kalimport to the forests of the Moonwood. Kingdoms rose and fell, enemies became allies. Death itself proved merely an interruption to bonds that transcended mortal limits. What follows is a glimpse of each member of this found family. Brunner Battlehammer is defined by two things: an unshakable loyalty to those he loves, and an insatiable dream of reclaiming the legacy of his dwarven clan. Born into Clan Battlehammer in the 1100s DR, Brunner survived the fall of Mithril Hall as a boy. The shadow dragon, Shimmergloom, drove his people into exile, scattering them to Icewind Dale's frozen wastes. There, under Kelvin's cairn, Brunner came of age as a weaponsmith and eventually clan leader. But reclaiming Mithril Hall became his obsession, the fire that drove his every decision. But it wasn't only his obsession that revealed who Brunner truly was. When he found a 3-year-old human girl amid goblin raid wreckage, the gruff dwarf didn't hesitate. He adopted Catti Bree as his own daughter, renaming her after himself. Years later, when a young barbarian named Wulfgar attacked Ten Towns, Brunner claimed him as payment for the destruction and spent 5 years raising the boy into a man of honor. In overcoming his prejudice, welcoming Drizzt Do'Urden as a brother, loving a human child and barbarian youth as his own, Brunner proved himself stubborn as stone, yet capable of profound growth. In 1356 DR, Brunner set out to reclaim Mithril Hall, aided by Drizzt and Wulfgar. The assassin Artemis Entrere's pursuit of Regis entangled Catti Bree in the quest as well, forming what would become the Companions of the Hall. When Brunner finally confronted Shimmergloom beneath Mithril Hall, he didn't hesitate. He ignited the dragon with oil and rode it into Garam's Gorge in what should have been a suicide charge. His survival, crawling blinded through abandoned mines for weeks, only enhanced his legend. In 1358, he was crowned the 8th king of Mithril Hall, fulfilling the dream of his life. But kingship brought immediate tragedy. Drow raiders seeking Drizzt killed his people. In the battle, Wulfgar died, crushing a demon beneath collapsing stone, and Brunner lost his right eye. The death of his adoptive son devastated him so completely that grief nearly destroyed his ability to rule. When Wulfgar miraculously returned 6 years later, freed from demonic torture in the abyss, the barbarian was broken. After Wulfgar struck Catti Bree and fled in shame, Brunner raged. Yet when they reunited, the dwarf punched Wulfgar square in the face, cursed him soundly, then pulled him into an embrace. For all his bluster, Brunner couldn't hold on to anger when it came to family. As king, Brunner evolved beyond the traditionalist dwarf.
I guess that's his sigil there. From a mug of ale. Well, we gotta use something.
Of his youth, when King Obold Many Arrows led a massive orc invasion in 1370, Brunner was gravely wounded at the Battle of Shallows. So close to death, his companions believed him slain. Yet he survived to make a choice that shocked the North. Rather than endless war, he forged the Treaty of Garam's Gorge with Obold, recognizing an independent orc nation. For a dwarf raised on hatred of orcs, this act of diplomacy transformed him from warrior king to visionary statesman.
Don't make the mistake of
Then came the spell plague of 1385. Catti-brie fell into a magical coma, and Regis was caught in the same affliction. Brunner carried them to Spirit Soaring, battled the Ghost King alongside Drizzt, but found no cure. Before his eyes, Mieliki claimed their souls. Burying his daughter was the worst day of Brunner's life. With Mithril Hall thriving and an heir ready, Brunner abdicated in 1409 DR by faking his death at a royal ceremony. Taking the name Bonigo Battle Axe, he set out with Drizzt to pursue one final quest, finding the legendary Gauntlegrim. After decades of searching, they discovered it in 1462, only to find necromancers attempting to unleash a fire primordial. Brunner fought with his last strength to reseal it, saving Neverwinter from destruction. He died a hero's death in the halls of his ancestors. But Mieliki offered the companions rebirth. Though he'd earned his rest, Brunner couldn't refuse the chance to stand by Drizzt again. In 1463, he was reborn as Reginald Roundshield. By 1484, the reunited companions found Drizzt atop Kelvin's cairn, mortally wounded and despairing. Their return saved his life. In 1486, Brunner led an alliance to fully reclaim Gauntlegrim, becoming its third king. He declared it a neutral haven for all clans, opening its doors to humans and elves, an inclusiveness unthinkable in his youth. The dwarf who once distrusted outsiders now chaired councils shaping the fate of entire regions. From exiled weaponsmith to dragon slayer, from grieving father to peace broker with ancient enemies, from death to rebirth, Brunner's saga is one of loyalty that transcends lifetimes. He charged into the abyss for his friends, abdicated thrones for greater purposes, and returned from death itself when his family needed him. Through every transformation, Brunner remained what he'd always been, the fierce, loving heart that held the companions together.
You still have one?
Born Catiline in 1336 DR, Catti-brie's life began in tragedy. A goblin raid claimed her father when she was only 3 years old, leaving the toddler alone amid the wreckage. Brunner Battlehammer found her there and adopted the human child as his own daughter, renaming her Catti-brie from Catiline and Brie, a feminized form of Brunner. At 11, Catti-brie became the first person in Icewind Dale to befriend Drizzt Do'Urden. Her acceptance gave the mistrusted drow something he desperately needed, a reason to stay, to protect, to belong. She helped civilize the young barbarian Wulfgar during his service to Brunner, awakening his compassion. When the companions reclaimed Mithril Hall, she discovered Tolmaril the Heartseeker in its ancient depths, a legendary bow whose limitless silver arrows she learned to wield with devastating accuracy. Catti-brie and Wulfgar became betrothed, their future seemingly bright. Then came 1365 DR and the drow raid that shattered everything. Wulfgar fell battling a demonic handmaiden of Loth, buried beneath collapsing stone. The companions believed him dead. In grief, Catti-brie and Drizzt's friendship slowly evolved into something deeper, but for many years they did not act on these feelings, even during the 6 years they sailed the Sword Coast aboard the Sea Sprite. When Wulfgar returned in 1370 DR, freed from the abyss, he was broken. Demonic torture had left scars deeper than flesh. In his anguish, he struck Catti-brie before fleeing in shame. She understood his pain and chose not to pursue him, respecting his need to heal on his own terms. They would eventually reconcile as friends, but their romantic path had ended. Catti-brie and Drizzt married in the late 1370s, claiming 8 years of happiness before fate intervened again. A frost giant's boulder shattered Catti-brie's leg during an orc offensive. Though healed enough to walk, she was left with a permanent limp that hindered her swordplay. During the Orc Wars of 1372, she fought beside the wizard queen Illustrial Silverhand. Illustrial entrusted her with a magic ring and a wand in the heat of combat. Catti-brie spoke the wand's command words and accidentally cast magic missile. To her own astonishment, the spell worked. When the orc horde pressed their attack, she unleashed the ring's power, raining fireballs upon the enemy and turning the tide. Thrilled by magic's potency and limited by her injuries, Catti saw a new path forward. Alestriel offered to make her an apprentice in Silvery Moon, and the archer became a warrior mage. Then came the spell plague of 1385. A strand of the collapsing weave struck Catti during meditation, branding her with an hourglass-shaped spell scar. Her consciousness was cast adrift between planes while her body fell into a coma beyond any healer's reach. Mialiki intervened with mercy, drawing Catti spirit to Eruladun, a private heaven prepared especially for her. There she dwelled in peace while decades passed in the mortal world. She was 49 years old. But Mialiki offered her a choice: be reborn and reunite with Drizzt when he would need her most. Catti accepted. In 1463, she returned as Rukia, born to Bedine nomads in the Anarak Desert. Even as a child, she retained hazy memories and divine gifts, calling lightning at age 5. The Netherese abducted her to study these powers, but she escaped, living under aliases until the time was right. On the spring equinox of 1484 DR, the companions reunited atop Kelvin's cairn. Catti found Drizzt mortally wounded and healed him with Mialiki's power. The joy of reunion was tempered by change. The compassionate girl, who once advocated mercy, had become zealous in her opposition to evil, even calling for the genocide of goblin and orc children. This extremism troubled her friends, particularly Drizzt, who compared her stance to Loth's own cruelty. Yet through continued trials, Catti would find balance again. Her journey culminated in 1488 during the Battle of Gauntlegrim. Pregnant with Drizzt's child, she insisted on standing with her friends. As chaos raged, her labor began, and in that moment of creation, Mialiki's power surged through her. The birth sent a shockwave across the battlefield, breaking Loth's enchantments and purging demonic corruption. Catti named her daughter Brianel Zaharina, honoring both Brunor and Zaknafein. From war orphan to archer, from betrothed to widow, from wizard to goddesses chosen, from death to rebirth, Catti remains the heart of the Companions of the Hall.
This is
Regis began as a thief, running from his past, became a fundamental part of the Companions, and ultimately proved that heroism isn't measured in size. Born in the sprawling city of Kalimport, Regis survived as a street urchin until Pasha Pook, ruthless guildmaster of thieves and assassins, took him under his wing. Though capable enough to be considered for guild leadership, Regis grew weary of the dangerous life. When he discovered that Pook controlled others with an enchanted ruby pendant, he made a fateful choice. He stole the gem and fled north to Icewind Dale, hoping even Pook's reach couldn't follow. In 10 towns, Regis carved out a comfortable existence. He opened a scrimshaw shop in Lonelywood, became the town's council spokesman, and befriended Brunor Battlehammer and Drizzt Do'Urden, who fondly nicknamed him Rumblebelly for his insatiable appetite. Regis preferred the pleasures of comfort to the perils of adventure. He was a decent thief and con artist, adept at using his wits or his hypnotic ruby pendant to wiggle out of trouble rather than confronting it head-on. This made him the one who had to be prodded into action, the smallest voice urging caution when his friends charged forward. Yet his good heart and loyalty earned him a place in the Companions of the Hall. Under Brunor's rough mentorship and Drizzt's friendship, they became his family. In 1356 DR, Regis reluctantly joined the quest to reclaim Mithril Hall. His past caught up at Journey's End when Artemis Entrere, hired by Pasha Pook, abducted him to Kalimport. The assassin cut off 2 of Regis's fingers as grisly trophies to bait Drizzt. The Companions mounted a dramatic rescue, defeating Pook and dueling Entrere. With Pook dead, Regis briefly became the new guildmaster before Entrere took him hostage and infiltrated Mithril Hall in a plot to draw out Drizzt. Once Dritz defeated Intrere and rescued the halfling, Regis began proving himself in unexpected ways. When Dritz secretly departed for the Underdark, confiding his plan only to Regis, the halfling took it upon himself to protect their home. With Brunner incapacitated by grief over Wulfgar's apparent death, Regis commanded Mithril Hall's defenses, marshalling the dwarves with surprising skill. The once timid halfling now barked orders to battle-hardened warriors. By 1370, he was officially serving as King Brunner's chief advisor, an extraordinary role for a halfling among dwarves. During the Orc siege at Shallows, Regis was wounded early and slipped away from the front lines to rally reinforcements. When Brunner lay comatose from his wounds, Regis again assumed temporary stewardship of Mithril Hall until the king recovered. Tragedy struck in 1385 during the Spell Plague. When Catti-brie was trapped in a mysterious coma, Regis refused to abandon her. He used his enchanted ruby pendant, desperately hoping to help, but his mind was drawn into the same planar fugue. For months, both lingered until their bodies finally succumbed. It was a quiet, heartbreaking end for the halfling who had survived so many perils. The goddess Mialiki took their souls to the peaceful plain of Iruladun, where Regis dwelled in blissful limbo for nearly a century. To help Dritz, along with Catti-brie and Brunner, with characteristic loyalty and a desire for redemption, Regis chose rebirth. In 1463 DR, he was reborn as a halfling child in Del Funtal, retaining all memories of his past life. This time, he saw it as a second chance to better himself. Where once he'd been lazy and conflict-averse, the reborn Regis, who took the name Spider Paraffin, rigorously honed his skills, determined never to be a burden again. His halfling father was a pearl diver, and his mother's water genasi blood gifted him with supernatural breath-holding. Local crime lord Grandfather Pericolo Topolino unofficially adopted the talented youth and trained him as an elite thief and spy. Under Pericolo's mentorship, Regis mastered alchemy, stealth, and swordplay. He became a wiry, capable duelist with rapier and dirk, a far cry from the pipe-smoking scrimshander he'd been. He even began deliberately seeking out fights for practice when previously he would have run. Privately, he was motivated by a deep need to pay back his friends for all the times they'd saved him. Tragedy struck in 1481 when Regis inadvertently released an ancient lich that murdered Pericolo. He fled, spent years on the move, and eventually joined a band of wandering halfling mercenaries called the Grinning Ponies. By late 1483, he returned to Icewind Dale, waiting for the prophesized reunion. In his second life, Regis found love with Dinala Topolino, Pericolo's granddaughter. They married and became a power couple in the halfling underworld. By the late 1480s, Regis operated as spy master and diplomat, using his criminal contacts for the greater good, uncovering conspiracies in Neverwinter, liaising with Jarlaxle's agents, and outwitting enemies with seasoned confidence. The halfling who once hid behind his friends now stands beside them as an equal. Regis Rumblebelly claimed his place in the hall, not through strength of arms, but through wit, loyalty, and the courage to become more than fear would allow. In the beginning, the story was meant to be his. A barbarian boy pulled from the wreckage of war, shaped by dwarves, trained by a drow, gifted a hammer that could break mountains. Wulfgar was R.A. Salvatore's original leading character for the Crystal Shard. And though the focus shifted to Drizzt, Wulfgar rose alongside him, fighting beside the companions of the Hall, carving his own name into legend. Among the strongest sons of the tribe of the Elk, Dragon's Bane, Giant Killer, Defender of 10 Towns, and King of the Ragged Barbarians, this is where the story of Wulfgar begins. Wulfgar was born to Bjornagar of the Ragged tribe of the Elk, one of the fierce nomadic clans that roamed the icy wastes of Icewind Dale. He was raised in a world where strength was survival, where pride was everything, and where death comes early. When we first meet him, he's a teenager of no more than 14 winters, serving as the flag bearer for King Hifstag. In the first brief glimpse, we see something in him, restraint, clarity, and a spark for something different.
3 signs you're a weak speaker. You replay conversations in your head.
During the barbarian assault on 10 towns in 1351 DR, Wulfgar is knocked unconscious by Brunor Battlehammer, and later, as a warrior moves in to finish the job, Brunor intervenes. Brunor sees something worth saving. Instead of executing the boy, he takes him prisoner. For 5 years and a day, Wulfgar lives under Brunor's watch in the dwarven mines. But this isn't slavery. He's not punished, he's forged. The dwarves teach him craftsmanship, discipline, restraint. They temper his rage without extinguishing it. Physically, Wulfgar grows into a mountain of a man, 7 feet tall, nearly 300 pounds of muscle and hardened will. But what matters more is what grows inside of him: respect, purpose, and a sense of honor his tribe had no language for. He also grows close to Catti Bree during this time, 2 young humans raised in the company of dwarves, each learning what it means to belong. When his time of service nears its end, Brunor gives him something more than freedom. He gives him a mentor, Drizzt Do'Urden. At first, Wulfgar hates him. Drizzt is everything his tribe feared and despised: drow, elf, outsider, and Wulfgar is still young enough to carry those old instincts. But that hatred doesn't last long, because Drizzt doesn't match the stories. He doesn't meet Wulfgar's aggression with rage. He doesn't mock him, punish him, or dominate him. He teaches. He outpaces Wulfgar with speed, precision, and restraint until Wulfgar, bloodied and breathless, has to reconsider who this man really is. And in that space, a bond forms. Over weeks of training, Wulfgar learns more than swordplay. He learns how to think, how to question, and how to listen. Drizzt becomes more than a teacher. He becomes a mirror, a way for Wulfgar to see the man he could become. And Brunor sees it too. Before Wulfgar's sentence is done, Brunor presents him with a weapon unlike any other, a warhammer forged in dwarven fires, crafted specifically for him. Aegis Fang, made of mithril and diamond steel, balanced for Wulfgar's massive frame, etched with dwarven runes of power. Aegis Fang is a gift, but also a promise, an oath that the hammer will never be raised against 10 towns. And Wulfgar makes this pledge, because by then he's no longer a prisoner. He's something else entirely. Soon after, he and Drizzt become a true fighting pair, tracking Verbeeg and tundra yetis across the frozen wastes. They move together, fight together, trust each other. And then comes the moment that changes everything: the day Wulfgar decides to kill a dragon. Among the rugged men, there is no inheritance, only proof. To lead, you must conquer. To conquer, you must earn it. And Wulfgar was ready to try. Years earlier, his father Bjornagar had stumbled across a forgotten cavern beneath the rugged glacier. Only later did he realize what it was: the lair of the white worm whispered in legend, Ingaloa Castamazelian, icing death. Bjornagar never lived to claim the prize, but he passed what he knew to his son, and now Wulfgar would finish what his father had begun. He journeyed alone to the Evermelt, where steam and black ice twist together in eerie stillness. The trek was deadly, treacherous, even for seasoned warriors, but Wulfgar survived through strength, but also preparation. He knew the stories. He came armed with fire-hardened fat to protect against frost, and the hammer Brunor had forged for him. What he didn't know was that he wasn't truly alone. Drizzt had followed him, quietly, unseen, not to take the glory, but to make sure the boy returned alive. And that might have been the only reason Wulfgar did, because when he found the dragon, curled in sleep beneath layers of hoarfrost, he didn't strike. He announced himself. "Greetings, Ingaloa Castamazelian," he said aloud. In that moment, it wasn't arrogance. It was honor, misplaced and nearly fatal. Wulfgar refused to kill a sleeping foe. He wanted a fair fight, a noble kill. But dragons don't care about nobility. Icing death exploded from the ice with bone-snapping fury. The cavern quaked. Wulfgar was thrown, battered and nearly broken. Only Dritzt's intervention, striking from the shadows and shrouding the dragon in magical darkness, gave Wolfgar a chance, and he took it. Aegis Fang slammed again and again into the dragon's hide until a final, desperate throw shattered the ceiling and brought a spear of ice crashing down. Icing Death was no more, and all Wolfgar needed was the proof. He staggered out of the cavern alive, dragging the horns of a legend with him. He didn't return to the tribe of the Elk in silence. He returned with fire in his step and proof in his hands. Before the gathered tribes of the tundra, he cast the horns before King Hifstag and demanded the right of challenge. He had no noble blood, but barbarian law allowed for another path, deed, and no deed was greater. The duel was brutal, but brief.
Nobody's talking about Moringa.
These AI ads are going to death of me.
Wolfgar crushed the old king with his bare hands, and when the blood dried, the boy who had once held Hifstag's banner now wore his title. But he didn't stop there. Wolfgar knew that Ten Towns faced annihilation. He knew that Akar Kessel's army would destroy everything in its path, so he made an offer to the other tribes, a bold one. The horde of Icing Death would be theirs, all of it, if they joined him in defense of the Dale. And they did. When Kessel's armies came, it was Wolfgar who met them, Dragon's Bane, hammer in hand and the full weight of the North at his back. And when the war was won, he brokered peace between the Ragged Men and the people of Ten Towns, securing safety, trade, and shelter for the coming winter. His people would survive, not through conquest but through alliance. Then he gave up the crown. He relinquished his kingship, his horde, and the power he had carved with his own hands, because his loyalty wasn't to the tribes anymore, it was to something greater, to Brunner, to Regis, to Catti-brie, and to Drizzt, the companions of the Hall. With the dragon slain, the war won, and his people safe, Wolfgar left the tundra behind and stepped fully into legend. No longer the outsider, no longer the student, he fought alongside the companions of the Hall as an equal, and for a while, it was everything he had dreamed. In Streams of Silver and the Halfling's Gem, Wolfgar is fierce, loyal, and alive with purpose. He's always the first to draw steel, the last to quit a fight. Tavern bullies line up to test him, and often leave in pieces. He's bold and brash and unmistakably larger than life. But it's not all muscle and shouting. Wolfgar also shows deep loyalty, especially to Regis. He defends the halfling constantly, even when Brunner runs out of patience for him. And as his journey unfolds, that protective instinct expands. In time, it includes Catti-brie. Their relationship begins to shift. What started as a friendly bond becomes something warmer, closer, maybe even romantic. They're the only two humans among their dwarven and elven companions, and they've grown up together in the same halls. For Wolfgar, it feels like a natural progression. For Catti-brie, it's more complicated. Still, in these years, Wolfgar shines. He battles the golem Bach, he helps defeat Shimmergloom beneath Mithril Hall, he fights a Hydra in the sewers of Kalimport and faces down Pashapuk's assassins in the streets above. He even joins the crew of the Sea Sprite, earning the friendship of Captain Dudermont, steering ships through open ocean with sheer strength. Wolfgar was becoming more than a warrior. He was becoming a hero. But even then, at his height, there were signs. His need to protect sometimes veered into control. His temper, though often justified, came fast and hard, and while his heart was in the right place, he still saw the world through the lens of a tundra tribesman. For a time, the cracks were hidden beneath laughter, brotherhood, and battle, but they were there. And in the legacy, they finally began to widen.
Yeah, it's not over yet.
By the time we reach the legacy, Wolfgar and Catti-brie are engaged to be married. What began as youthful affection has turned into something more serious, but with that seriousness comes pressure. Wolfgar wants to protect her, That's what he's always done. But now that protectiveness begins to suffocate. The closer they get to marriage, the more Wulfgar starts to view Catti-brie less as a partner and more as someone who needs defending, controlling, guarding. And when Drizzt re-enters the picture, spending time with Catti-brie, confiding in her, fighting alongside her, it becomes too much. Wulfgar's jealousy boils over. What he doesn't know is that he's being manipulated. Artemis Entreri, disguised as Regis, has been subtly stoking those fires, using the ruby pendant to cloud Wulfgar's judgment, deepen his suspicions, and pull at the loose threads in his pride. But even without the pendant, the cracks were already there. When Wulfgar finally snaps, it's not just words. He challenges Drizzt, his teacher, his brother, his friend, to a fight, and Drizzt accepts. Wulfgar fights with rage, Drizzt fights with restraint, and even as Wulfgar is physically stronger, he can't win, because Drizzt isn't trying to destroy him, he's trying to teach him. Eventually, Wulfgar breaks. But even after the fight ends, the damage lingers. His pride has been wounded, his relationship with Catti-brie remains fractured, and though the companions still stand together, something has changed. Then comes the ambush. In the tunnels beneath Mithril Hall, the companions are attacked by Drow, agents of Bregan the Earth, led by Drizzt's sister, Vierna. In the chaos, Vierna summons a Yochlol, an avatar of Loth, the Spider Queen. It's a demon, and it will not be stopped. As the Yochlol moves in on Catti-brie and Brunner, Wulfgar makes his final choice. With a final cry to the god of war, Tempus, he collapses the tunnel, bringing stone and steel down on the demon and on himself. It is a sacrifice, sudden, brutal, and final. And just like that,
My wife said,
No bad, thank you. Got gone.
Wulfgar disappears beneath the rubble. Wulfgar's death comes as a shock. After everything he'd survived, from dragons to demons, from tribal exile to kingship, it doesn't feel possible that it could end like this. Crushed in the tunnels beneath Mithril Hall, buried in stone as he holds off a demon no one else could stop. And for the companions, and for us, it hits hard. Because Wulfgar has always been a force, loud, brave, and unshakable, the one who would stand between danger and the people he loved. And now he's just gone. What makes his death all the more painful is Entreri's manipulation with the ruby pendant. It's subtle but devastating. It twisted Wulfgar's fears, amplified his insecurities, and pushed him into isolation at the worst possible time. It took everything already simmering beneath the surface, his jealousy, his protectiveness, his wounded pride, and turned it into something destructive. And yet, in the end, he found clarity. His final act wasn't rage, it wasn't panic, it was purpose. He sacrificed himself to save Catti-brie and Brunor, not as a king or a husband, but as the man they had always hoped he would be. His final cry of Tempus is a reminder of the power and courage of Wulfgar. His death sends ripples through everything that follows, sends Drizzt to his death, and sets Catti-brie on a heroic course. We will see him again, but he won't ever be the same.
Okay. I'm going to stop there. Now, I couldn't really get that much commentary because, one, I'm not that familiar with the Drizzt stuff. But from this video, it was very informative, and I would look forward to watching some more of Drizzt lore. What's the name of the channel? Let me go back. Share my screen. The channel is called Drow Historian. Looks like he does more. Let me go to videos. Looks like he does more. He does Drizzt lore and other stuff. So that's interesting. See some stuff here on Forgotten Realms. Okay. I'll give him a follow. Let me subscribe. Oh, I am subscribed. Perfect. Do a subscribe. Make sure it's on all. So I'm ready for when you just on a video. But overall, I did enjoy it. Might look at more of this in my free time to get some more knowledge about the world because I am curious about to see more. I did enjoy my favorite parts. I would say so far, learning about Drizz's origin story was good, and his companions, the companions of the whole, his companion, his allies in battle, learning about their backstory and how they involved Driz was good as well. But overall, that's it for this video. Until my next one, have a nice one. Take care. Do, do, do.